A very warm welcome to all our students that are joining us today for week 2 of our student training intervention. Thank you for joining us, and I know it's late in the afternoon and some of you are coming back from work, but taking this time to join us to get the core skills that you need for the online assessments. On behalf of the academic team, the Academic Development Open Virtual Hub, we have several colleagues today that are going to work with us as we run this specific session for you. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Denzel Chetty and I lead the Academic Development Open Virtual Hub project. Now, over the past year, we've seen that as a result of the pandemic, we have transitioned to a much more robust online teaching and learning environment. And one of the notable changes has been our transition from venue-based exams to now non-venue-based exams, where all our assessments, all our exams are now completed online. And some of you have already started the exams in the course of this week, and I wish you all well. And some of you are now getting ready to prepare yourselves for the upcoming examinations. But as you prepare yourself for the upcoming examination, the critical question is, how can you have less stress in engaging the platform, understanding what's required from you as you start to engage in this space in the online environment. And part of these training webinar sessions is actually to prepare you with the core set of online skills that you would need to navigate the upcoming online examination. Now, we have actually taken a twofold strategy. So the first strategy is a MOOC that we've developed. Now, MOOC is basically a massive open online course. It's free, it's open to anyone. And part of that MOOC is to allow you to engage with some of those core skills. For example, how do you navigate an online assessment platform? What are the different online assessments that you can expect in an online learning environment? What are the proctoring apps? And this caused a lot of confusion among students. So we'll be tackling that. What are the proctoring apps? What is it used for? How do I use it? And then what is academic integrity in online assessment? And lastly, what provisions are made for students with special needs in an online assessment? Now, to supplement this MOOC, in the course of this, you will find that we will share you information how to actually access the MOOC, where to find it, etc. But we've also now supplemented the MOOC with a series of webinars. And these webinars ran last week, and we're now repeating the webinars specifically for those that couldn't join us in the week or one. Part of these webinars, it gives you an opportunity to actually engage us as your facilitators with the questions that you have. You will find that on your screen itself, you have a little icon on the top, a chat icon with a question mark. You can use that chat icon to communicate with us. You'll find that you can't unmute yourself, there's no cameras. So you will literally use that chat function by posting your comments in, posting your questions, and we have a group of experts from Student Retention Unit plus the adult colleagues that will be in the background to try to respond to some of those questions. We will also, during our Q&A session at the end of our presentations, then bring the panelists back onto the center, onto the screen, and we will then try to answer some of those questions so that we try to cover as much as possible today. So up today, we have our first speaker who is going to focus on what exactly is UNISA's online exam platform. How do you navigate it? What can you expect on it? And it's my pleasure at this time to invite our first presenter, who is Dr. Ingrid Murray, and she is a senior lecturer in the Department of Anthropology and Archaeology, where she teaches anthropology. But she especially loves the challenge of large class teaching as well as innovative assessment practices. Her past research has focused on experiences of teachers in primary school, the use of public space in Johannesburg, and her current research is focused on academic integrity in open distance e-learning environment. Ingrid has also been key to a lot of our adult developments, and she's quite familiar with the space as well as setting the exam papers in an online space. So you're actually getting expert information from all our colleagues today. At this time, it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Ingrid Murray. Ingrid, welcome to the session, and thank you for taking the time, Ingrid, to showcase and demonstrate how the platform actually works to our students and what they can expect in the upcoming exams. So thank you very much, Ingrid. I hand over to you at this time.
Thank you, Denzel, and thank you, students, for being here today and getting ready to write your exams. So what I will take you through today is the different exam platforms that you're going to be using and how to access them, and also a little bit of information about your exam timetable. And that's where I'm going to start today. You would already have received your exam timetable. So what I'm doing, I just want to show you how to understand your timetable, just because we've been getting a lot of questions around timetables from students. If you see on my screen, you'll see the first module says module arrangement. And that basically just means that your lecturer will, it's a non-timetable, there is no exam. Your lecturer will have shared with you how you complete this module. And in many cases, that is either through continuous assessment or existing non-venue based exam like a portfolio. Then the second exam that you see, you will see this runs on multiple days. So it runs from the 5th of November to the 19th of November. What that means in effect is that anything from the 5th of November at 11:15 until the 19th of November, 11:15, you can start and complete your exam. It is advised that you start it on the first day so that you download the exam question paper, so that you can see what you have to do. This type of exam often asks, the expectations of this kind of exam is that the work that you will have to put in is much more than a short exam period. And if you can see the last exam type, you can see this exam you will be writing from 3 o'clock in the afternoon until 6 o'clock in the afternoon on the same day. And that often means that you start at 3 o'clock and by 6 o'clock you have to hand in or start your handing in process. So it's very important that you check your exam timetable to see when you are writing and to also know what the time is that you're going to be writing. So once you've figured out your exam timetable, what you have to do is you have to go to the My Exams Gateway. Now there's several ways of doing it. One way is to go to the My UNISA site that you are used to, and you will see it says there'll be a little banner that says go to my exam login, and you just click on it and you will get this page. So here you can see there's the dates, today's date and tomorrow's up until the 11th, and as the exam progresses there'll be more and more dates. And then what you do is you find your exam, you click on it, and you find your exam that is being written on this date or on tomorrow, and you simply click on this exam. This will then open a login system, and you simply use your password that you use for My UNISA. So please check on My UNISA that your password is working and is correct, so that you don't get stuck on the morning of your exam with a password that doesn't work. If your password is incorrect, what you can do is to click on Forgotten UNISA Password, and it will take you through a process to get your password back. All right, so once you have this My Exam site open, and you can reach this site in a variety of ways. As I said, you can go on My UNISA and click the link. You can type in myexams.unisa.ac.za. But there's also college-specific portals. So each college will have a portal that you can reach, and on your screen you will see the link to each one of the portals, and we'll drop it in the chat box just now. Because students might at this stage log in to the My Exams through the My Exams portal and not find that they've not been linked yet. We found this is for two reasons. The one is that we are linking students as the exam timetable progresses. So if you're only writing modules in the latter part of the year, you will not yet be showing on this landing page. But you might, if you go to your college specific landing page, be able to log in. All right. But that is, please don't stress about that. That's the least important thing for you to stress about. The most important thing is to know if you go to myexams.unisa.ac.za, you will be able to log into the My Exams portal. So you click on log in, and you will be asked to enter your username and password. As I've said, your username is your student number, and the password is the password that you use to access your My UNISA services. So you log in, and what you will see is a landing page. And there's three important things that you should know about this landing page. The first one is that your modules should be appearing on this little ribbon strip here. Okay, you can see I have a lot of modules here, and that's because I'm involved in a lot of different teaching, but you will only have the modules for this exam period. If your module isn't here for any reason, what you can do is click on Sites, and you will see there's a list of modules here. If you still can't find it, click under Filter Sites and just type in the module name that you are looking for. So for demonstration purposes, I'm going to go to a site that we just use for teaching. And yours should have a little bit of a nicer picture than ours. As I said, ours is only for demonstration effects. So if you are writing a MCQ exam, okay, so multiple choice question exam, you will have to go to online assessment. You will know what type of exam you're writing from your lecturer. So please contact your lecturer to hear what type of exam you are writing, or check on My UNISA under announcements. There should be tutorial letters that tell you exactly what to expect in your exam. So if you're writing a multiple choice assessment, you click on online assessment, you click on that, and what you will see is you will see an option that says take an assessment. This assessment will have your module code. So, you know, if you're writing anthropology, it will be APY 1502, for example, and then it will have October, November, and 2021. When you are ready, you click on that, and this screen becomes very, very important. You will find information on this screen that will tell you about this exam, this assessment. It will tell you exactly when it is due. So mostly if you're writing an exam, it will tell you, you know, it is due at 10 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the evening. It will tell you how long you will have. Some exams are scheduled for a slightly longer period, but once you start your exam, you might only have 1 or 2 hours to complete it in. So it's very important, if you have an exam that is scheduled from, let's say, 8 o'clock until 3 o'clock, you know, 8 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock, it's a very big module. It doesn't mean that you have all of those hours for a multiple choice exam. It means that within that period, you can write your exam, but once you click on begin assessment, it will only be available to you. This assessment will only be available to you for however long it is specified. So in this case, this exam is 1 hour, 7 minutes. In some cases, it might be a bit more or a bit less. Okay, so it's very important that once you click begin assessment, that you know now the exam has started. All the exams will be set up that it auto-submit. So that means if your time has run out for this exam that is scheduled, apologies, it will mean that the system will automatically submit all of your answers to what you have had at that, what you have answered up until that stage. Okay, and it will also tell you how many submissions you have to complete it. So before you begin, you'll see there is an honor pledge, and this honor pledge is really important. You are not allowed to share answers within Telegram groups. You're not allowed to sit with your friends and write the exam. Some of these do's and don'ts we will cover in the academic integrity section of the workshop, which is on Thursday, I think. So it's very important that you come and listen to that as well. So before you can start the exam, you have to click on the honor pledge. And then remember, when you click begin assessment, your assessment immediately starts. All right, what you will then see is the questions will show to you. Some lecturers will set it up so that your questions only show one by one, and that importantly that you cannot go back to previously asked questions. So it's very important that you click on the answer and answer the question before going on to the next question, because you might not be able to return to change your answer. Some lecturers will set up this page so that there's more than one question on it. So there might be 3 or 4 related questions on it, and then you answer them as they get. Again, some lecturers will have it set up so that you can go backwards and forwards, and some will only allow you to go forward. So whether the lecturer has allowed you to go backwards or forwards, it is important that you answer each question as you receive it. If you have time and the lecturer allows, you can go and check your answers, but do not bargain that you will be able to do that. I also just want to take your attention to this little green bar at the top. That tells you how much time you have remaining within this exam. Once this time is up, this will auto submit, and you won't be able to continue writing your exam. So do keep an eye on this time. Okay, so now you are ready to answer the questions, and you literally all that you do is you click the radio button next to the correct answer. Some might request that you type words or type a short answer question, but the premise is the same. You just have to answer the question as it is there. Once you are ready, you can click on next, and that will automatically save the question or your answer, apologies. It will save your answer so that if anything happens and you get kicked out, for example, it won't expect you to start from question 1. So here we go. We are answering this question. You can click the save button. If there's 3 or 4 questions on the page, you might want to click on save. If there's only 1 question, it's redundant to click on save because next saves automatically. All right. And then you have your last question and you click on that. Now, this exam was set up so that you could check your previous answers through this question progress bar. So you could go back to question 1, for example, or go back to question 3. As I said, not everyone will have this. If at any stage you are kicked out of the My Exams platform while you are writing your exam, and it is not due to a time lapse, right? Because remember, your exam will auto-submit once the time is up. So if it kicks you out, for example, because your Wi-Fi dropped, you will be able to just go back into My Exams and go back onto the platform and start your assessment again. 2 things is very important at this point, though. The first is that if you have done that, if you got kicked out, the time will still continue running. So if so it will continue running, so you can't make up the time. So it's really important that you try and log back on as soon as you can. And once you are logged back on, it will take you to the question that you were last busy with. All right, so I'm now happy. I've checked my answers. I know what is. I'm happy with how I've written this exam. You can then click on save, and then you click on submit for grading. And it will give you a little warning that it says, are you really sure you want to submit for grading? If you don't want to, you can go back. But if you are ready to submit for grading, you just click on submit for grading. It's really important with this type of exam that you don't have multiple windows open, because it will confuse the exam and it will think that it will try and submit all of these multiple windows at the same time for you. All right. Once you've finally submitted this exam, you will get this little receipt, and this is your proof that you have submitted this exam. It's like that little slip that you used to get when you went to venue-based exams. If anything happened, you can present this receipt to show your lecturer or the exams department, but in fact you did write the exam. This is when you wrote it. This is when you submitted it. So you can make a screenshot for it, but it is also sent to your My UNISA email address, your My Life email address. All right, so once you finish, you click on continue, and it just takes you back to this screen. If you have more chances left over to take the assessment, it will still sit there. Otherwise, it will just sit here at the bottom to tell you when you submitted it. All right, so that is for multiple choice questions. The other type of assessment that you will have is you will have e-assessments. So an e-assessment is a take-home exam. It's a written exam, whether that is handwriting or whether you are typing. It's some sort of short of limited period exam that you have to finish, whether it is three or 4 hours or whether it is over multiple days. All right, so and just to let you know, you won't find online assessment and e-assessment open when you are trying to submit your exam. So once you are ready for your take-home exam, you click on the module name, and again it will be module name November 2021. So you click on it, and then you will get some information about this exam. It will give you instructions for how long you have to write the exam, whether it's an open book or not, and yeah, whatever information your examiner, your lecturer feels is important that you have. You will then see under additional resources for assignment, you will see a PDF document. And what you have to do then is if you click on that PDF document, that is your exam question paper that opens. So at this stage, you can just click to save it. And it's really important that you make sure that you've given this exam a good name so that you can be able, this exam question paper, a name so that you can be able to find it, that you save it in a place that makes sense for you, you know, so that you can find it, because what we've experienced through the years is that students don't name their things properly, and then we as lecturers get wrong submissions. So you didn't name it as the exam question paper, and suddenly you come to submission and you give the question paper back to us. So at this stage, if you are using whatever system you are using, you can actually close My Exams and just concentrate on finishing writing. You don't have to be connected the whole time. With the multiple choice exam, you have to be connected to the internet the whole time. Here, you don't have to be connected. Do take note if you have to use one of the invigilator apps, there might be different requirements, but per se you don't need to be connected. You can navigate back, as long as you navigate back within the time that you have to hand in your exam. All right, so here we go. You've now written the exam. You have scanned it if you are handwriting. You have typed it if you are typing. And you are now ready to upload your exam. So what you would do is you'll navigate right back to e-assessment and the module name, and then you will come here. It will say submission. So important, look at where submission is, and you will see choose file. So here you choose the file, and it's really important that you look for the right exam answer script. So what I would recommend is that you name your answer script, the module name, your student number and the date, and maybe something like answer script. And remember, you can either write by hand and scan it, or you can let me just show you that again, or you can type and save it as a PDF. So again, just show you, you click on choose file, you navigate to where the file is, you click on it, you click on open, There we go. Then it is uploaded. Once there is a clickable link there, some sort of file, you have to check that you've added the right thing. So you click on that file and you will see it opens the file, and then check that it is your answer script and that you are happy. If you have handwritten and you've scanned the PDF, you've scanned it and you've saved it as a PDF, make sure at this stage that all of the pages are clear. Make sure that they are all in order, that they are readable. This is where you can say, if you're handwriting, you can save yourself a lot of time beforehand by preparing pages with your student number and the module code on it. All right, so once you are happy that this is the correct file, you just close it and you go back to this page. Again, there's an honor pledge that you have to do. So just click on the honor pledge. Remember, you're not allowed to pay somebody to do your work. You're not allowed to work in groups unless specified that you're allowed to. You're not allowed to plagiarize. And then you will see a submit button, and then you click on submit. It's very important that you click on the submit button, because if you've come to this page and you forget to submit, your exam won't be marked because your lecturer will not have received it. So you click on submit, and again, it'll take a moment. You will get the submission confirmation that says you have successfully submitted your work. Again, this receipt will be emailed to you, and you should keep it. You can also make a screenshot of it just to make sure. And then you click to back to list, and there we go. That is your exam completed. So I think that is all of the skills that you need in order to submit your exam question paper. I just want to let me just there we go. I've showed you the college link, and if you have questions, we can talk about it right at the end of this session, and I can explain it to you again. I think I've showed you how to go to My Exams, how to log in, how to find your exam paper, so that you know. Some common mistakes, I've showed you how to find it. We've talked about what to do if your password isn't working. If you're logging on and for some reason your web page, your My Exams page is not showing correctly, what you can try to do before panicking is to clear your cache and clear the cookies and then try again. We found often that that is the problem, that students' computers itself is giving problems, and you can try switching to a different web browser. So if you are using Google, Google Chrome, you could, for example, go to Firefox. Do not use multiple windows. This is really important, especially for the MCQ exam. Because what happens if you have multiple windows open because you want to try and Google the answer or something, the system gets confused because there shouldn't be multiple windows, and it will auto submit your work. So your work will then be submitted and your exam will be finished. One thing that I want to bring to your attention is there's a difference between the MCQ exams and the take-home exams. With the MCQ exams, you don't have what some students call that extra hour, the handing in hour. That is because MCQ exams are done live while you are on the system. So once you start them, you have to take them. You have to finish it at that stage, and there's no scanning or anything that you have to do. You answer the questions as they come. So there's no extra hour with MCQ online exams. For take-home exams, you have an extra hour. That hour doesn't appear on your timetable. It's not an extra hour to write extra long. That hour is there to help you scan your work if you have to scan it, and upload it to my UNISA or to my exams. As we'll talk to you in the academic honesty webinar, misuse of that extra hour is a offence against the university rules. So that extra hour is only there to upload. And then lastly, there is aggregate exams. If for some reason something went really horribly wrong that couldn't be foreseen. So, for example, Eskom decided that today is a good day to load shed you, even though it's not scheduled and the cell phone towers doesn't work. But only after you've started the exam. You can apply for an aggregate exam. However, it's very important to note that you have to provide evidence in whatever way you can. Firstly, and then secondly, that this aggregate will be a second opportunity. So you won't qualify for a supplementary exam if you fail that second opportunity. And then I do want to just remind you that there is still portfolio exams, and these are previously scheduled portfolios that you knew from the beginning of the semester or beginning of the year. These are handed in via the My Admin system. They also don't appear on your exam timetable list. And your lecturer will tell you what format they should be in. And that is everything that I have to share with you today. I will be around to answer any questions that you need. Thank you. Back to you, Denzel.
Thank you very, very much for that, Ingrid. Thank you especially for unpacking how the students can access the exam platform, how to answer the different type of assessments from MCQs to take-home exams to download papers. I've seen that there are some questions from the colleagues relating to, can you please show us the MCQ exam again? Not a problem to the students. We will re-demonstrate this towards the end in the Q&A part as well, so that for those of you that missed out or were struggling to follow, you would be able to take that session with Ingrid towards the end of it. Then also common mistakes that Ingrid pointed out as well. I think that's very important that you take note of that, because that also would help you as you start to unpack your training for the exams. And last, the additional time that Ingrid unpacked of how to use that time strategically and not to abuse it, but also to ensure that you are compliant within the UNISA in terms of its time limits as well. Ladies and gentlemen, students, we now move on to the next session. And the next session is builds on what Ingrid has just outlined. So Ingrid has just outlined the exam platform, what's available on the platform. Now the question comes is, how do I prepare for the different types of assessments? What do I need to do if I have an MCQ examination or a take-home exam or a portfolio exam? And to unpack that, we've asked two colleagues who are from the college, formerly from the College of Education. For example, we've got Dr. Salosh Govender, who's will start the presentation for us. And she was formerly from the College of Education, now moved down to the Curriculum and Learning Development Directorate. And she specializes in the ideas of assessment, student learning, assessing for learning. So she's quite key in unpacking the critical elements that you need to focus on as a student, considering what academics might be testing you and how they are testing you. So these are some key essentials on what to prepare if you've got the different type of assessments. And she'll really give you some insight into what academics will be looking at. Following that, we'll have Professor Vanessa Sherman, who is co-facilitating this particular session. And she is from the College of Education and from the Department of Psychology of Education. But her field of specialization are also on psychometrics, assessment, and social emotional learning. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have two colleagues that are quite well acquainted with the fields of assessment, who will now unpack for us what are the different types of assessments and how can you prepare for these as a student. It's my pleasure now to welcome Dr. Salosh Govender, and following that, Dr. Professor Vanessa Sherman. Salosh, let me start with you. Thank you very much, Salosh, for agreeing to join us today and for sharing your wisdom and insight with the students, but more specifically for helping our students to prepare on the upcoming examinations and to calm some of the stresses that they may have. Thank you very much, Salosh. I now hand over the platform to you.
A very good afternoon, dear students and colleagues. In this presentation, I, Salosh Govender, together with my colleague, Professor Vanessa Sherman, will orientate you to the different types of online exams. Colleagues, to start off this presentation, I would like to begin with a reflective activity based on your personal experience. Have you ever felt frustrated, anxious, thinking about preparing for your final examinations? How did you feel knowing that you spent a lot of time studying but didn't get much out of it? Have you ever felt like the mark you've received did not reflect the amount of effort you put in? Does it feel like you can only remember a small section of work that you have studied? Well, if you answered yes to any one of these questions, you will definitely benefit from this lesson in the MOOC, as well as this presentation. Many students begin to feel anxious as they approach the final exams. It is only normal, and there is no doubt that the exams are challenging. Anyway, exams need to be challenging, colleagues. And if it gets a bit too much, and if you feel overwhelmed, then it can affect your performance. Therefore, we are here to provide you with some tips and some tricks to overcome this kind of anxiousness, anxiety, so that you can succeed in your examination. Colleagues, the overview of the presentation, right? I will outline the types of online examination. Then I will discuss short questions together with the strategies, move on to MCQs and the open book, and thereafter Professor Vanessa Sherman will take over with strategies on how to answer essays and portfolios. The purpose and the outcomes of today's presentation. The purpose of this presentation is to facilitate the part of the content of the student orientation MOOC, which Dr. Denzel Chetty mentioned. And the part that we are going to facilitate is the part on the types of online exams. The lesson on assessment types in the MOOC includes important theoretical information, as well as you will find that there are important practical exercises or activities that you can complete, which will help you prepare for the examination. The presentation will also orientate you to the different types of online exams, and it will equip you with knowledge and study skills to become competent in answering different types of online assessment questions. You will see that there is no one-size-fits-all strategy in answering the questions. Different types of questions require specific techniques in studying and answering the questions. Hence, we will assist you with different strategies on how to approach the different types of exams. Now, the outcomes of this presentation. After this presentation, you should be able to apply appropriate study skills in preparation for your exams, distinguish between the different types of online examination, MCQs, essays, short questions, open book, quiz, portfolios, and so forth, align the module outcomes to assessment. And in my presentation, you will see why I'm mentioning the importance of aligning module outcomes to assessment. You'll also be able to apply appropriate strategies in answering specific type of questions. And this presentation will help you to reflect and to rethink your own study approaches in order to improve your own practice in studying. Now, colleagues, the exam format and question types. When we talk about exam format, right, you will recall much of what Professor Ingrid Murray mentioned. She spoke about exam format. There's two types of format. One is the online assessment, such as the MCQs, And this type of assessment must be online for the full duration of the exams. In other words, if you are attempting the MCQs, you've got to be online for the full duration of the assessment. Then the other exam format is what we call the e-assessment. Here, the example of the e-assessment you will recall, as mentioned by Ingrid Murray, is the file upload or the take-home exams, right? And you'll find these type of exams, it's available on the e-assessment tool on My Exams. So you need to be acquainted with the exam format before you start writing and preparing for your exams, okay? Next, we move on to the types of questions. Colleagues, it's absolutely critical for you to know what type of questions or what format of exams your paper is, your exam is following, right? So when we talk about types of questions, we are referring to the short questions, essay questions, case-based scenarios, randomized MCQs, and portfolios, right? You'll find that in your exam paper might include just one type of questions. For example, your exam paper might include all essay questions, or it might constitute all short questions, right? Or it might be solely MCQs, or your question paper might have a combination of short questions, essay questions, case-based scenarios, and so forth. Hence, it's important for you to know what these type of questions entails and how you can prepare for these questions, and also how the strategies or techniques you can apply when you're answering these questions. Okay. I also want to reiterate continuous assessment. Right. With regard to continuous assessment, what it refers to is that it includes a series of assessments that are graded within a semester period or a year. There are no final exams if your module is following a continuous assessment approach, okay? And each graded assessment counts towards the final mark, right? And the rationale for continuous assessment is that it ensures that students work consistently throughout the exam, throughout the study period. We do not want a case where students are only going to study at the end of the year because of the exams, they want to pass and then get through. We want our students to achieve what we call holistic graduateness, right? We want them to achieve all the outcomes successfully. We want them to engage in deep, meaningful learning throughout the learning period, and therefore we are, striving to move towards continuous assessment approach. With regard to continuous approach assessment, it provides early indicators of students' performance, and students receive ongoing feedback as they submit assessments, and the feedback helps them to improve their learning so that they can master the module outcomes. All the assessments are weighted. You will recall that if your module followed a continuous assessment approach, you would have completed between 4 to 6 assessments if it was a semester module, and between 6 to 8 assessments if it was a year module, right? And on your exam timetable, as Ingrid Murray mentioned, it will be reflected as module arrangement, which means that there is no exams, but you may have a portfolio to submit. Okay, so that is the approach of continuous assessment. Now, colleagues, let us look at aligning outcomes with assessment. How often have you asked this question? Where do I study? What do I study? Where do I start studying? These are critical questions asked by many students. Our answer to you is start off with your outcomes. You need to look at your learning outcomes. Every module has a set of module outcomes, and your module outcomes is what will determine what you're going to be assessed on. If you look at your tutorial letter or your study guide, you'll find the module outcomes stated at the beginning of your learning units or your lessons or your study unit, or it would be indicated at the beginning of your study guide or your tutorial letter, right? And this is what is going to guide what you're going to be assessed. So if you know about your learning outcomes, then you'll be able to know what you are going to be assessed on. When we talk to academics, they know that when they are setting or designing their assessments for their examination, they have to align their assessments with the learning outcomes. So when we are developing the curriculum, we start off with the learning outcomes, then we plan the assessments, methods, and look how the assessments are aligned to the outcomes, and then we look at the teaching and learning activities, which you will find in your study guide. Now, colleagues, please do not underestimate the importance of the learning activities in your study guide. Your learning activities are there to help you complete or to understand the content of your module. So if you find that there are activities that requires you to engage in discussions or to complete short written individual activities, please make sure that you complete them. Engage in the discussion activities. I know it's end of the year now, and many of you have not, some of you may have not participated in your discussions, but colleagues, please find some time now. Go and read the postings of your colleagues in the discussion tool, in the discussion forums, and you'll be amazed at how much of learning is going to come out of you reading your colleagues' postings. If you are studying in an online environment, right, distance learning, we are promoting collaborative teaching and learning. What does this mean? It means that you learn from your peers, you learn through engagement, you learn actively. So please, colleagues, find some time, look at the postings in the on my UNISA, and you will gain immensely from that. Okay, now I want to move on to preparing for your exams. After I discuss how you prepare for your exams, then I will move on to strategies in answering your exams. Right, so we all know that preparation is the key to success. And this quote by Benjamin Franklin, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. Colleagues, I want you to reflect on that. And in the MOOC, I've included an activity, a reflective activity where where we want you to think of an incident, an event, an occasion where you failed to prepare and it resulted in a failure. Right, you could have thought of maybe a party, a function, anything, not necessarily an academic event. Okay, now these are the 4 critical steps in preparing for your exams. Right, firstly, you need to have knowledge about your examination, and I will discuss these in details in my next slide. You need to apply effective studying skills. You need to develop a study plan and practice questions, right? So let us take a deep dive into these strategies, right? So knowledge about your exams, colleagues. We are aware that it's highly unlikely that you have registered just for one module. Many of you would have registered for much more than one module in a year. It could be very confusing as to, what is the format of each of your modules, what is the type of your exams, and so forth. Right, so you need to have knowledge about your exams for every module. You need to know what is the format of your exams, right? Is it a MCQ on Samigo, or is it an e-assessment, file upload, essays? What is it? Then you need to know what type of exam is it. Is it going to be only essays? Is it going to be MCQs? Is it going to be an open book? Right. It's important for you to know the type of exams, because if you know the type of exams, it will help you to prepare according to the type of the exams. There's no use you practicing a whole lot of MCQs only to find out that the type of exam is a written essay. Okay, you need to find out whether there's going to be case studies. If there are going to be case studies, it means that you're going to prepare, right? Then also you need to know what is the duration of your exams. How long is it going to be? That will help you to manage your time in the exam. You need to know what is the weight of your exams, right? This will help you as well. You need to know what topics are emphasized in the outcomes. Look at your outcomes. Make a list of critical topics that's emphasized in your outcomes. And this is going to give you a lot of knowledge about your module and your exams. Next is applying effective study skills. Okay, now these are some of the study skills that you need to take note of. Complete reading and what is in the content of your study material, as well as completing all the learning activities. Please, colleagues, at UNISA, as I'm saying, as I mentioned earlier, we work on what we call active learning, which means that we expect you to engage in active learning from the time that you start your module. Right, engage in the activities, complete the activities, go on to the discussions. And if you worked consistently from the beginning of the year, you'll find that there's actually no need for you to cram your learning at the end of the year. Right. Another strategy is recall. You'll find that memorizing some of the information, it is important, because every module you'll find that every module will require you to demonstrate an understanding of key concepts related to the module. It could be basic understanding if you are writing a first-year module. It could be detailed understanding if you are writing maybe a second-year module. It could be integrated understanding if you are writing a third-year and a fourth-year module. So you need to recall or memorize certain concepts. Next is summaries, right? Remember that you may have lengthy content notes, right? And it's some of those content notes, you cannot memorize them, but you need to study them with understanding. So after you study them, you need to make short, brief summaries, right, of keywords, so that you'll be able to remember when you're asked to analyze, discuss, and so forth. The next study skill is reflect. And colleagues, at UNISA, we are really promoting reflective learning. What does it mean? It means that you must take the content from your module and try to reflect, make connections with what is in your content to your own personal or the workplace experience. Right, this is the meaning of reflection. Reflection means that you need to think or share your views, share your opinions, take the content and make a connection with practical examples. Right, if you're able to do that, you are able to demonstrate an understanding of the content. The next is plan. Please plan your learning. Right, look at the more important concepts that's emphasized in your outcomes and try to spend more time on the more important concepts. You also know what are important concepts if you look at your assignments, what have been emphasized, and so forth. Then make connection of what is learned, what you have learned with the practical, real life situations through examples. Colleagues, when you use examples in your exams or your assignments, you are bound to get more marks because you are demonstrating your understanding of those concepts, right? And then the last skill is write practice questions. Take your content and develop your own practice questions and see if you're able to answer those questions. we find that students, they do not know at what level the module is pitched at. For example, if you are doing a first year module, you'll have very basic understanding, more of explain, discuss, list, and so forth. We call this here lower levels of cognition. Then, as you go on to the higher levels, like NQF level 7, that is when you're in third year and fourth year, you have higher levels of cognition, which requires you to then analyze, evaluate, synthesize, create, report, argue, formulate an argument. So you need to devise or plan your own practice questions and try to answer those questions. Okay. Next, developing a study plan. Make a list of all the topics in your module and develop a study plan so that you spend enough time on all those concepts, right? Through, over the time that you have to study. Okay. The fourth strategy, I'm going back to practice. Find or make up your exam questions based on your outcomes. Answer the chapter review questions. What I mean here is, if you are using a prescribed book, you'll find that your prescribed book might have chapter review questions. Go through those questions and answer them, right? And once again, colleagues, consider the level of difficulty of your module. We call this here your NQF module levels. Now, in the MOOC, as I mentioned earlier, I've included some practice exercises that are going to really help you to succeed in your exams. And we are very cognizant that you have limited time to study for your exams. We do not want to create extra work in the MOOCs, but the exercise that we've given you is what's going to help you in your exams. So I would like to share just 2 practice exercises with you. One of them is where this exercise will help you to organize your studies so that you give adequate time to all your modules, especially if you have enrolled for more than one module. In a table with 3 columns, list all the modules you have registered for. Write down the exam dates, the time, and the format of your exam paper. And you'll find this is going to be so important for you. Then you're not going to fluff around when it comes to, when your exams come closer. You know exactly what you need to concentrate on. For example, you might find that if you have enrolled for 6 modules, right, out of the 6, 2 are MCQs, the other 2 are open book, the other 2, maybe it's essay type questions, and then you can plan accordingly. This would really help you. Another practice exercise is where I want you to, become familiar with your module outcomes. And this will help you to understand the level of difficulty of your module, whether you're going to be asked to discuss, analyze, evaluate, report, etc. Then, just as a practice exercise activity, students, choose any one of your outcome and try to set a question that aligns with that outcome and try to answer your question according to how this question has been formulated. Because this is how academics actually design and set your exams. Okay. And if you have a study group, you can also share your questions with your study group. Okay. Now, colleagues, I want to move on to short question time. What is a short question? If you are given a short question, do you know what is a short question? Well, a short question requires a concise written answer to a question using complete sentences. So we do not want you to write maybe just phrases. You're going to lose marks, right? We want you to write concise sentences in full sentences. It usually takes the form of a brief question that requires a written answer, normally no more than a few sentences or a short paragraph. So that's what a short type of question is. Now you'll find that short questions normally focus on the knowledge and understanding of terms and concepts. Right, so modules that's mainly NQF level 5. This means the first year level modules mainly will have short type of questions. I'm not saying that second year and third year may not have short questions. Because as I mentioned earlier on, right, you may have a paper with a combination of short questions and essays, right? So if you're preparing to learn your concepts for your module, it will come out as a short question, okay? Now, these are the strategies for preparing to write short questions. All right, now here's a template for preparing for questions requiring short answers. Breaking unit notes into these categories as you're revising will help you to recall the information and explain it thoroughly in your exams. Colleagues, we know that memorizing is a dangerous way of learning. Okay, some concepts you could memorize, but some of the concepts where there's lengthy kind of definition, it's very difficult to memorize. So we want you to demonstrate an understanding of the concepts. So if you know that you're going to be assessed on key concepts in your module, your paper is going to have short questions. Make a list of your key concepts, and then you write in your own words after you have studied what it is, and then you will show how those concepts are related, and then you'll give an example to illustrate that concept. And if you're able to do this kind of exercise, use this template when you're studying, you'll find that when when it comes to your exams, you're not going to fluff around. If that short question is out of 5 marks, you'll be able to write, in your own words what it means. You'll be able to relate it to an example. You'll be able to relate it to an issue that needs to be explained or clarified in the concept. Okay. Now, this is an example of a short question. Okay, and in this example, I want to demonstrate to you how we unpack the question. All right, so the example in the case study, analyze the term foreign direct investment. Describe the difference between the flow of foreign direct investment and the stock of foreign direct investment. So this is a short question. Okay, so what you need to do when you get a question like this is that you need to divide the question if needed, like this here now. It's quite a complex question that has many questions in one question, okay, or many prompts. So firstly, what is meant by the term foreign direct investment? Then describe the difference between the flow of foreign direct investment and the stock of foreign direct investment. Right, you unpacked the question. Then you underline the keywords. What is meant by the term foreign direct investment? And immediately now it must click that you know exactly this particular concept is discussed in study unit 2. You should be able to locate it in your study material. Then describe the difference between the flow of foreign direct investment and the stock of foreign direct investment. Then you highlight or circle the keywords of the task words. The task words is what is going to tell you what you must do. Analyze the term. Describe the difference. It's the action word, what you need to do. Then you need to formulate an answer. A good short answer in an exam specifically answers a question in the first sentence. The rest of the paragraph is used to explain your answer. So the first line is what is going to address the question, and then the subsequent sentences is what is going to support your answer. Okay, now let us turn our attention to a case study type of question. Right, what is a scenario or case study? It is a description of an actual situation involving a decision to be made or a problem to be solved. So you'll find in every case study, there is a decision to be made or a problem to be solved, or you might find a case study that depicts some good practice. All right, it can be a real situation or it can be adapted. Case analysis helps students to acquire 2 skills. So when you are given a case study to analyze, we are actually assessing 2 skills. We are assessing your ability to apply theories or theoretical aspects of your study material or your course or your module to the real situations. We are also expecting you to generate solutions to real problems. Every module, every NQF level module expects you to become a problem solver. Now, colleagues, at this stage, I just want to say to you, right, at UNISA, we are transforming our curriculum, right? We are big into curriculum transformation. You would have seen the word curriculum transformation in your tutorial letters, but but you may have wondered, what is curriculum transformation? One of the curriculum transformation driver is what we call responsiveness, which means that we are trying to make our offering, our teaching, very, very relevant to the work situation. Right, so that when you go out there into the real workplace, you are competent to undertake the task that you are appointed for. Okay, so we try to make it very relevant, and we make it relevant through the introduction of case studies. Now, the strategies for approaching case studies. 3 processes are involved in successfully answering a case study. If you are given a case study, you need to identify the issue and the problem in the case. Next, you need to see what are the possible solutions to this problem. And third, what are the recommendations to this problem? Okay, now let us look at, let us apply this here now. So, every case study, you'll find a little story, scenario. Now, the background or the context, every case study or scenario will have a background or a context. And the background and the context is actually important for you, because when you are given a background or context, it means that you need to be able to sift out, filter the important information that is going to help you to understand the case, the problem. Some information might be irrelevant. You can discard that. So, what background facts influence the current problems referred to in the question? Remember, when you're reading a case study now, firstly, read it, identify the problem. Next, look at what is the background, or what is the context? What's happening in the background that's influencing this particular problem? What are the constraints or the obstacles of the situation? That is the background. Next, identify the problem. You go back and you read the case study, okay? Then you summarize, you list the issues and the problems in your own words. You might find that a case study might have more than one problem. So you list down all the possible problems. And then you'll say, okay, what is a major problem that's addressed in this case study? And then you'll number it, number 1, number 2, number 3, in order of importance. Then you'll sort out major problems from the minor problems. After you have all these problems identified, now you go back and you look for evidence that supports each problem. Evidence that relates to the problems that's being addressed. You identify the underlying cause of the problem. It might not be in your case study, but then it will ring a bell, and then you say, oh, you know, I remember this particular problem, socioeconomic problems in housing. It was addressed in, or it's being addressed in study unit 4, and it speaks to the section, it speaks to that outcome. So you draw a connection between the problem and the theory in your book, right? Third step, you link the problem to your theory. When I talk about theory, I'm not only talking about Piaget's theory or Skinner's theory or those big theories that we talk about. I'm talking about theories as in terms of the content of the book. Make a connection with your case study with the content material. Match appropriate theory to the problem. Explain how the theory relates to the problem. Then you identify possible solutions to the problem. If you find that there's more than one solution to the problem, you will evaluate each solution. What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages of each solution? And then after you have evaluated each solution, then you say, okay, after my evaluation, I believe that this particular solution is the best solution to this problem. And then you'll start structuring your work logically. And when you are answering a case study, use headings so that there's a logical flow in your writing. And lastly, you'll provide recommendations. Okay, so when you have case studies and short questions, you come across a lot of command words. The command words is what we call task words or action words. It tells you exactly what you must do. So for every question, whether it is a short question, essay, or case-based scenarios, you will have command words. Now, colleagues, I want to share an example with you. I'm using an example from the College of Education in the teaching field, in the Department of Teaching, teacher education, right? This is an example, right? And I decided to use this example because I believe that every one of you will be able to relate to some experience of your years when you were at school, right? I want you to think of the different strategies that teachers used. Now, we are actually promoting what we call student-centered approach, where the student constructs meaning and understanding on their own through the guidance of the teacher. So we call it a student-centered approach on the one hand, and on the other hand, it is teacher-directed approach. Teacher-directed approach is where the teacher does all the talking. We call it the talk and chalk approach. Right. This is just a little background about this example here. Now, in this example, the question is critically compare two teaching approaches a teacher may use in mathematics teaching. That is a question. So, what are the command words? The command word is critically compare. It's not compare, it's not discuss, it's not explain. It's critically compare. Now, this question is asking the student to critically compare two different teaching approaches in particular. As such, they will not be able to pass by writing about less than two. So if a student only wrote about the teacher-directed approach, the student is not going to pass. If the student wrote about the teacher-directed approach and explained what is the student-directed approach, there as well, the student is going to lose a lot of marks because the student did not compare. So what we expect the student to do is we want the student to compare the two approaches, and we want them to use supporting to support their answer with examples, right? So this is actually what is expected in a question like this here. You need to critically compare two teaching approaches, such as teacher-directed and student-centered approach. Then your answer must also include both approaches together with the strengths and weaknesses of each, comparing them to each other. So after you have explained, you need to say, these are the strengths and weaknesses of teacher-directed approach. This is the strengths and weaknesses of student-centered approach, based on because there are more weaknesses in the teacher-directed approach, I would opt for the student-centered or the student-centered approach. Right, so this is actually what is actually required of you when you critically compare. Okay, now you will find that in your questions you'll have more command words, and as I said to you, the command words is based on the level, NQF level of your module. Name and list. What does it mean? If you are asked to name and list, you'll only state the facts and you do not expand. If you're given a question that asks you to name or list, do not go and write a whole page because you have learned that section so well. You're not going to get any more marks. Right. Describe, state, summarize, or sketch. Simply record how you see a particular phenomenon. Give a brief condensed statement if you're asked to discuss or to state or to summarize. It's a very brief statement. If you're asked to discuss, this is a comprehensive term that includes compare, motivate, and explain. Right? If you're asked to compare, you weigh different elements against one another and indicate their similarities and differences. If you're asked to motivate, the emphasis is on the reasons for a particular decision or point of view. A certain degree of elaboration is needed, but the main emphasis is on the analysis of the reasons. And if you're asked to define, you write the meaning of a particular word or phrase, and you write the exact meaning of it, or you define information a little more broadly in your own words. If you are defining and using the words of others, then you need to cite and reference accordingly. Otherwise, it will be construed as plagiarism. Okay. Now, colleagues, let us move to multiple choice questions, right? You know, we normally refer to multiple choice items. Why? Because a multiple choice need not take the form of a question. It could be a statement. It could be something that we need you to complete, incomplete statement. So therefore we call it an item, multiple choice item. A multiple choice, but for the sake of presentation, for the sake of understanding, or for the sake of making the distinction between the different types of questions, I will use the word multiple choice question, okay? Multiple choice question includes a statement or questions followed by 4 or 5 choices and then or options, right? You must select the best answer from the choices, and selecting the best answer is sometimes a straightforward process, but it can be very challenging. Here, colleagues, we all know that there's a misconception or misunderstanding that multiple choice question, it involves guesswork, it's easy, and anyone can pass because it's guesswork. Please, that is a total misconception. Multiple choice questions are also used for high order modules, right? And if you look at your multiple choice question, I just want to show you the anatomy of a multiple choice question, right? Just, you're not going to be tested on these terms in your exams, but it's important for you to know what it is, right? First, you'll have a question or a statement like this here, and we call it a stem. Who sent the first internet email using the @ symbol? That is a stem. Then we have what we call the options, A, B, C, D. Now, amidst your options, you will have distractors, which are not the correct answer. And then you'll have one correct answer. So we call these here distractors. And the reason why you need to know, or I thought that I'll just share with you these terms, is when I'm talking about how to approach it, I will use the word distractors and stem. Okay. Now, I just want to pause for a while here, and I just want to share with you a little scenario or case about our famous Professor Dean's experience. Professor Dean clearly remembers his first college multiple choice exam for one reason. It's because he failed it. He was accustomed to writing essays and solving problems for final exams. The first multiple choice exam he ever took was when he was 24 years old, working on his degree in accounting and economics. Multiple choice exams required an entirely different thought process than I was used to with essays, said Professor Dean. So I started learning about multiple choice tests and accumulating ideas on how to approach them to help myself become a better multiple choice test taker. In later years as a college professor with his own students, Professor Dean found that students too experienced a similar challenge as him. Then, according to Dr. Dean, this is his message. He says to us, there's no secret to success when it comes to multiple choice questions. It's all about techniques. Learn the methodology, apply the technique, and you will increase your potential for success. Now, colleagues, let me share with you some techniques on how to approach multiple choice questions. For maximum success, you must understand the purpose of the question and the principle behind the question structure. So if you are reading a particular question, ask yourself, what is it that's being assessed in this question? Am I being assessed understanding of a concept, application of a theory, or what is it that I am being assessed on? Multiple choice questions are testing 3 things. It tests basic knowledge, such as facts, figures, definition. Best learning strategy is rote learning for memorization. If you know that you are writing a multiple choice question, you will definitely have questions that are going to assess basic knowledge, right? you'll definitely have application of knowledge to a particular context. And the best way to learn application of knowledge is reading case studies and examples in textbooks. And then you have analysis, synthesis, and evaluation, where it combines and uses knowledge to address a real life scenario. You can be given a case study, and in this case study, you can be given, multiple choice items to complete based on the case study. And if you are such questions, it actually assesses your ability to analyze, synthesize, and evaluate. Okay. Now, moving on further to strategies for MCQs. When you are given a MCQ question, you need to read the multiple choice question in its entirety before glancing over the options. Don't assume they contain any tricks. Don't look at the options. Read only the stem of your question or your item and try to answer it yourself. After reading a question, answer it in your mind before reviewing the answer options. Next, when you're looking at your answer option, if you cannot answer it, okay, you go back, you read all your options, and then we will start on what we call eliminate the answer options, which you are 100% sure are incorrect, before selecting the answer you believe is correct. If you have 4 options, you read the options, and the ones that you're 100% sure is incorrect, eliminate it. Then it leaves you with 3. Use the process of elimination, cross out all the answers you know are incorrect, right? And then you will arrive at the best answer to your question. Okay, so we use the process of elimination. Remember, you need to read every answer option prior to choosing a final answer. If it will not count against your score, make an educated guess for any question. So if you feel that the option that's given to you, you're not able to find the correct option. Now, if there is no negative marking in your MCQ, then you make an educated guess, okay? You also need to take special note of words such as not, sometimes, always, never, or phrasing such as, negative phrases, which uses word like doesn't describe. You might get a stem that says choose the answer which doesn't describe. Choose the option that best describes. Choose the most correct answer. Choose more than one. Right. So take note of these words that can cause confusion. Right. It is best to stick with the answer you first chose after reading the question. Then, when dealing with difficult questions, pay close attention to negatives and absolute terms like always and never. Watch out for distractors. You might find there's extra bits of information there in your option that may not be relevant. Take note of that. You might have those bits of extra information might just be there to confuse you. Okay. Treat each alternative as a true or false statement. This is a nice, or should I say, this is a very effective technique, students. First, we discussed the technique of elimination. Now I'm talking about technique of true and false. Read each statement or each option and treat it as if it's a true and false statement and ask yourself, is this true or is it false? Right, if you are looking for the correct answer. If you are debating between 2 similar answers, try identifying which is the worst answer. If you have 2, if you're left with 2 answers and you're confused whether it's A and D or whatever, then try and look at which is the worst answer. If you eliminate the worst answer, then you'll be left with a better one. Plan your time carefully. If you are stuck with one MCQ, do not spend all your time, move on, and you can always come back. Now, coming back is an option chosen by the lecturer. Some assessments would allow you to go back and to answer, while some assessments might allow you, may not allow you to go back and answer. Okay. Remember, if you have prepared adequately, your knowledge and skills will speak for itself. We always preach this statement there. Okay. Now, colleagues, I just want to touch on an open book exams. Right. What is an open book exams? An open book exams it's a type of exam where students are allowed to refer to notes, text, study material, and other resources to answer the questions. It's aimed at assessing students' ability to find and apply information. You will never find an open book exams if the questions expect you to regurgitate answers from the book or to recall answers. An open book is normally used for higher order thinking, higher order skills of analyzing, evaluating, and so forth. Students often have a misunderstanding or misconception about these exams, such as, I don't need to study much for my exam because the information will be right there for me to look up. Or, all I need to do in the exam is copy the answers out of the text, so why should I study? It's an open book. Colleagues, this is a total misconception. Okay. What should I expect in an open book exams? The notes and the text are right there in front of you. So it is most unlikely to ask questions that just call on you to copy information from the resources. You need to apply, you need to analyze, synthesize, compare, contrast, or evaluate the information. You might be given a problem or a scenario, and then you are asked to apply concepts from several parts of the course to develop an answer. The examiner will be looking for well-structured and presented arguments or solution. So if you're given a case study, for example, you might be asked to formulate an argument in support of something. Right, and then you will formulate an argument, and then now you will use evidence from your study material to support what you have argued. The exam is likely to be more challenging than others, and the examiner is likely to have higher expectations for quality of your answers because it is an open book and it requires analytical thinking. How should I prepare for open book exams? Firstly, find out exactly what you are allowed and not allowed to answer the questions. If your lecturer says that you're only allowed to have your prescribed book, you may not Google, you may not use the internet search, then please, you need to be mindful of that. Find out if you need to cite sources in your answers. Most probably, yes, you will need to cite, but it depends here again. Study your material thoroughly as you would for any other exams, right? And the important strategy, students, is do things with the information, not locate information and reproduce it for an open book. So the information that's there, do things with that, not reproduce it in your exams. Okay, and if you know that you're writing an open book exam, you need to organize your resources. Bringing excessive materials that may distract you, clutter your workspace, and tempt you to waste time by looking up facts unnecessarily. You need to know, right? Write key concepts on sticky notes and use these as tabs to index your textbook, right? You need to work in a very systematic way if you are writing an open book exam. Prepare a condensed set of notes or summary of the course. Include notes or concept maps showing the relationship or connections between different concepts, because an open book exam, you'll find it's always been timed. And one of the reasons why we're timing it is because we do not want to encourage cheating, or it's a strategy to mitigate cheating and dishonest practices. Colleagues, I have come to the end of my presentation, and I'm going to hand you over to Professor Vanessa Sherman, who will take over from where I left, and she will continue with essays and portfolios. But before I leave, I just want to leave you with this thought. The only place where success comes before work is in the dictionary. Okay, and colleagues, I want to wish you every success in your examination and best of luck. Thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I hope all is well. My humble apologies. For some other reason, it shows that I am not unmute, yet I am. So welcome to my presentation, and thank you so much, Dr. Govender, for your presentation, and especially in terms of open book exams, because we have had a lot of questions about open book exams, and I think preparing for open book exams does mean that we need to think about it a little bit differently. If anything, we prepare a lot more for an open book exam than we would for any of the other exams, if that's even possible. So as Dr. Govender has indicated, I'll be talking to you about strategies for essay type questions. I'll also be talking to you with regard to portfolios. Of course, there is a lot of information in the MOOCs. I know, and I can see from some of the questions that there are some concerns about the MOOCs, but we would like to encourage you to practice, to go through these exercises, just to familiarize yourself with what you can expect in the examination. If we have to start to think about essay type questions, I think it's very, very important, and Dr. Govender spoke a lot about these command words. So if we start to think about an essay type question, it's important to realize that what we are really looking at is we are looking at higher order thinking. The focus is on analyzing, evaluating, or perhaps even creating information. So the type of command words that we would look for then would be such as appraise, compare, contrast. If we are asking you to evaluate, then we are looking for appraise, argue or defend or judge. If we are looking at creating, we are looking at constructing, design, develop. So it's very, very important that you are clear on what is expected. I will be talking about the different types of essay questions that you are likely to get in the exam a little bit later. But in the back of your mind, just please remember command words so that you adequately address your question. And this would be for any type of assessment that you would get in your exam. So what is it that we would like you to do before the exams? Because of course, if we have to think about examinations, and as Dr. Govender has already said, everything, the devil lies in the details. So it's about preparation. It's about making sure that you know what is what and who is who. So if we have to think about essay type questions, it's important that we start to realize that what we would like you to do is to demonstrate the depth of understanding that you have with a particular topic specifically. So of course, in addition to the depth of understanding that we would expect you to have, we also want you to be able to demonstrate your reasoning skills and your arguing skills. Are you able to defend your position? Are you able to substantiate why you are thinking in a certain way? Remember, I think that we have underscored this so often in the presentation already. This isn't about regurgitation. At a higher education, we are expecting you to move way beyond that. We are expecting you to really engage with the material in a very articulate way, because remember, what we are trying to do is we are trying to prepare you for the world of work. So it is about these problem-solving skills. It is about these critical thinking skills. So please bear that in mind. So it's important that when we think about our exams and specifically our essay type questions, we need to learn the material with the exam format in mind. So this does mean that when we think about essays, very similar actually to preparation to open book exams, we need to be able to organize our ideas. So we need to be able to make the notes. We need to be able to think about what are these logical relationships between ideas and themes. What are the patterns that tend to reoccur? So for me, whenever I know that I need to write an open book exam or even an essay, what I do is I prepare concept maps. Mind maps don't necessarily work for me, but that is a personal choice. So find the study method that works for you, whether it's a mind map, whether it's a concept map, so that you can start to identify what are these ideas that seem to naturally hinge together. And it also goes together with your brain, because if we have to think about neuroplasticity, if we have to think about how knowledge is solidified in our minds, of course, if we can identify these relationships, it's a lot easier for us to explain what it is that we actually mean. What we would like you to also do is we would like you to think 5 minutes before your exam. Once you've set up everything, you're ready to go. What we would like you to do is to do a warm-up exercise, especially if you're writing essay type exams. We see with the swimmers, we see with the athletes, they spend a little bit of time to sort of like get their muscles loose, get their muscles going. We need to do the same with our brain, especially when we're writing essay questions. So what we would like you to do is just do a little bit of free writing before you write your exam. Of course, put these notes away, because remember, even though we are writing exams on these online platforms, unless it is explicitly stated that this is an open book exam, you are not to have any notes around you. Okay, very, very important. So what do we need to do during the exams? Once the exam has started, we suggest that you do a memory dump. So what this means is that you write down all of the information that you can think of related to your module in point form. This just helps get everything down on paper. It's also very, very important that you analyze the question and circle these keywords or these command words, as Dr. Govender has mentioned, and work out which aspects of the topic you would really like to write about. Remember, you've only got a set period of time, so it's really important that you plan your time very, very carefully. And that you allot your time very, very carefully. So if you've got 3 hours and you've got 3 essay questions, you know that you can only spend an hour per essay question. So it's vital that you take 5 minutes to plan what you are going to say, so that you know exactly where you are going, you know at which point you actually need to move on to the next question. One of the really good tips and hints that we would like to give you is that when you see that you are starting to run out of time, just start to write down in point form. Generally, when we write an essay, we know that we want our paragraphs, we know that we want a logical flow, we want an argument. However, if you're running out of time, if you see that you need to go on to the next question, just start writing in point form to make sure that you can illustrate that you do know more about the topic. I think it's so important that you address issues of spelling and grammar and the mechanics after you have drafted your essay. This is very important. So I tend to be a little bit of an A-type personality myself. So if I know that I've made a spelling mistake, it totally freaks me out. However, when you are busy writing your essay, remember it's about the flow of ideas. If you have to stop and check your spelling, check your grammar, check all of these mechanics, not only are you wasting time, but you are also interrupting your natural flow, your thinking flow of how things are going. And what's really nice is if we are working electronically, these are very easy to fix up later. For those of us who like pen and paper, a really handy tip is to use double spacing. So if you're using normal exam pads, paper, just write on every second line. This means that there is enough space in between so that you can make the corrections that you would like to make. Just some general comments about exams. I think it's very important that from the get-go that you have your argument, that you are clear on what your argument is, that you can develop your argument throughout your essay. So of course, within an essay, we already know that the essay is structured in a way that you have your introduction, you have your body, and you have your conclusion. But it's also very, very important that we think about the order of our subtopics. And this is one of the reasons why we say do a bit of a memory dump before you start writing, because this will help you to organize these subtopics that you know about in a very logical way. It also means that you'll be able to transition from one idea to the other in a more seamless way. And of course, what we will be able to see is we will be able to see the development of critical thinking, we'll be able to see the development of argument formation very logically and very clearly. It is so important that you get to the point. So I know that some of us feel that maybe if we waffle a little bit, that we might get a point. If not for content, then for creativity. And this is not normally how it works. Please remember, more often than not, a rubric is used to mark an essay for consistency purposes. Remember, there are many, many students. In order to make sure that the marking is reliable, more often than not, a rubric is used. And in the rubric, generally there aren't any spaces for creativity. What there's space for content, creation of ideas in terms of related specifically to the module. So please bear that in mind. So try and keep the waffle to a minimum. If we have to think about what are some of these general essay questions that you would get, we can sort of like break them up into different types of essay questions. We could have an identify essay question. These tend to be a little bit shorter than what we would expect in a normal essay, which could take up some pages. It's short, concise answers that we are looking for. We can think and refer back to the information that Dr. Govender gave us in terms of short answer questions. If we are looking for explain essay type questions, these require full-length essays with well-developed responses with supporting ideas. Very, very important. We want to see that you can apply knowledge. So it's not just about the fact, it's also about the application of the fact. So if you have to think about these command words, we are really looking at things like discuss, explain, analyze, or illustrate. These are the types of words that you will see with an explain essay. If we are looking at a compare essay, then of course what we want is some kind of analysis in terms of similarities and differences. We want to be able to see these connections between ideas and concepts. So if you are going to be looking at a compare essay type question, then your command word would be compare, contrast, or perhaps relate. If we are looking for an argue essay type question, this means that we really want you to position yourself, to take up a certain position, to form an opinion on a particular issue, and really to be able to defend your position against certain alternatives. So if we want you to use argue, then we are looking at command words such as prove or to justify. Assess essay type questions involves assessing an issue or idea by describing it against criteria. There's also a level of defending a position or judgment, because remember what we want is we want you to assess something. So more often than not, we would have command words such as criticize, evaluate, or interpret. So moving swiftly on to portfolios. One of the things we want you to remember when you're thinking about a portfolio is that this tends to be an authentic assessment tool. More often than not, you have gotten the information about your portfolio well in advance. It's even normally captured in your tutorial letter, for example, so you know exactly what needs to be included in your portfolio. What I think is important for you to realize is that while it would seem as if a portfolio is just a collection of stuff, it's not really a collection of stuff, because what we want to see is we want to actually evaluate the learning process, and we want to evaluate your learning progress specifically. So a portfolio is about these higher order thinking skills, because it's not just about inquiry, what it is that we are including. Remember, there are judgments that are made in terms of what it is that you include, but at the same time, there's also this reflective process, because whatever we include in our portfolio, more often than not, can be directly related to our learning outcomes. Okay, so you need to have a very good grasp of the module, and also a very good grasp of your own learning through this process via reflection, because what we are expecting you to do is to access these metacognitive skills. So you need to start to think about your own learning process and to explain that to us. So if we have to think about portfolios, we get different types of portfolios. We can get a showcase portfolio, which contains products that demonstrate how capable you are at any point in time. I often, when I talk to my students about a showcase portfolio, I often say that this is the type of portfolio that you start to put together. You could start putting it together now for your exam, but it's also very useful to keep this portfolio, because it is something that can be shown to a prospective employer. So it really encompasses what it is that you are capable of doing. An assessment portfolio contains products that are used to assess your competencies, and I'm going to be talking about competencies because this is very important when we start to put together our portfolio. And then, of course, development portfolio shows how you have grown over a period of time. So it really looks at from where you started to where you ended, and what are these particular growth points. So in the previous slide, I spoke about competencies, and I spoke about well, what we want to do in a portfolio is to really look at different competencies in quite a broad range, if I can put it to you that way. Not only do we look at cognitive learning in terms of what you actually have learned, so in terms of these theoretical aspects, research, these knowledge underpinnings, the information that you've gotten from the module. What we are also looking at is psychomotor learning domain, in terms of whether or not you are able to apply skills, whether you are able to demonstrate your abilities as well as knowledge. And then, of course, this affective learning domain, where we also see the progression of beliefs, a progression of values, attitudes, as well as commitments. So remember, when we are thinking about a portfolio, we are thinking quite holistically across all of these different competencies. So what is it that you need to remember when you have to submit a portfolio for your exam? It's very important that you read the criteria very carefully. So your lecturer will give you detailed information related to your portfolio in terms of what they would like to see, what you need to include. You also need to go back to your learning outcomes, because remember, your portfolio is a demonstration of how you have met these outcomes. It's also very important that you refer to the rubric, because this is how you are going to be marked. So your rubric can actually act as a checklist for you in terms of where exactly you can position yourself. It's so important please, 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 to organize your portfolio. It means that you need to label your sections very clearly. You need to have something like a cover page. You need to have a table of contents so that we can navigate your portfolio very easily. Remember, if you submit a portfolio that is not organized, it also means that your ideas are not organized, because inherent in portfolio development is your development of your ideas. It's a systematic demonstration of growth. So if your portfolio is all over the place, it means that your thinking is all over the place. It means that you probably have not met the outcomes as was expected. So it's also very important that when you think about these reflections that you need to include, that you go back and make sure that you understand what your lecturer expects in the reflections. More often than not, your lecturer will be pretty pointed in terms of what types of things they want to see in these reflections. So they'll give you hints in terms of what it is that you need to actually include. So remember that when we think about your portfolio, we think about your portfolio holistically. So we are looking for thoughtfulness, we are looking for these metacognitive processes, and that you have demonstrated these metacognitive processes. We are looking for growth and development in terms of content expectations, that here we are thinking about our learning outcomes specifically, as well as any of these other indicators that your lecturer may have included when they have described what it is that they expect from your portfolio. It's very important that application is demonstrated, because remember, application is part of one of these key processes that we want to see within your portfolio. We are also looking for appropriateness of products and processes. So what have you included? What haven't you included, and why? And then, of course, diversity of entries to be able to demonstrate achievement. So it's not one-dimensional, that you have really thought about the outcome, you have thought about the criteria as reflected in the rubric, and that you have chosen certain entries because they target key things that you would like to show your lecturer. So if we have to think about rubrics, this is just an example of a very generic rubric. Your lecturers will include a specific rubric for you. More often than not, apart from the criteria and proficiency levels, each proficiency level will also be allocated a grade. So it's important for you to identify, when you evaluate your portfolio against the rubric, that you have a fair idea in terms of where you would fit in terms of these different categories. So it could, for example, be organization and writing mechanics, artifact selection, as well as reflections. It could be even more nuanced than this. This is why it's so important that you need to go back to your tutorial letter, that you have a look at the rubric, because what we want to see, for example, if we are looking at reflections and we are looking at excellence as a proficiency band, what we want to see is reflections that state what, so what, and now what in relation to these artifacts. There are definite connections that we can see, not only to ourselves and how we have learned, but also extrapolating this to others, as opposed to very poor, where there are no reflective statements in terms of any of these things. So it's very, very important that you understand your rubric and make sure that you spend some time with your rubric. If you have any questions about your rubrics, make sure that you ask this timeously, and perhaps even on my UNISA, so that this can be addressed for all students to benefit from. So what is it? Just some concluding remarks, drawing from what Dr. Govender has said, as well as what I have said, is make sure that you use your assignments as a guide. Remember, more often than not, lecturers are using their assignments to scaffold knowledge so that we prepare you for the exam. So if you go back to your assignments, you'll see the type of questions we are asking. You will also see the depth of knowledge that we are expecting from you. It is also important that these provide some practice questions for you. Practice makes perfect after all, and if you practice, you will be less fluffed, as Dr. Govender has said, in your exam, or flustered, because you know exactly what is expected of you. It's very important that you study both the major concepts as well as the details. It's important that you understand the relationships between things, that you know what the similarities and the differences are. And it is so, so vital that you need to apply the information, not just recognize it, not just regurgitate it. Find practice questions was very nice. More often than not, at the end of your prescribed book, they have some practice questions in there. The internet is a beautiful, beautiful place. You will be able to find some practice questions related to your topic area on certain sites, other university sites, for example, that look at very similar things. It's very, very important that you compose your own questions throughout the semester. If you are having Teams meetings, lecture forms, to make notes, to make sure that you are making key things in terms of what is being discussed in these Teams meetings. It's also very important that you start to think about wrong answers, to try and clarify where your confusion lies, because it's very easy to get confused. So it's important for you to have the right answer from the word go. With these practice questions, it also helps you to test your knowledge and understanding. It helps you to apply what you have learned if you can come up with different scenarios on your own. It also forces you to integrate material from different parts of the course. One of the things that is very exciting is that we see that students are inviting lecturers to WhatsApp groups and have their own WhatsApp groups, which means that students can share practice questions. So, for example, you can think very creatively about how you distribute practice questions and how you share these to help each other. It's also very important that you make use of error analysis, especially in relation to your own assignments, where you take note of things that you left out, these omission areas. Say, for example, you are making notes, and in your assignment, you have from your notes written your response, and then you say, oh, well, actually, I missed a key thing when I was making notes. Okay. Also take care of careless errors. I mean, we are human. We do make mistakes, but if we have analyzed where we have gone wrong previously, it's more likely that we will get it right the next time round. And this is just as important in terms of prioritizing. What information are we prioritizing and what errors creep in because of that? And then, of course, make note of application errors where you are trying to apply your knowledge, but perhaps you are applying it incorrectly. So if you know where you are going wrong, then, as I've said before, it's so much easier for you to correct that mistake in the future. So in conclusion, what would we like to say? Remember, plan your time carefully. We cannot overemphasize this enough. And as Dr. Govender has said repeatedly, and I've also said it repeatedly, kind of, sort of, remember, if you have prepared adequately, your knowledge and your skills will speak for themselves. So keep calm and good luck for your exams. We wish you all the best. We wish you strength, and if you prepare, you will be okie dokie. So on that note, thank you everybody for your attention and have a very good evening.
Thank you very much, Salosh and Vanessa, for that excellent presentation, but also for strategically unpacking what the students can expect in an online assessment. Also with Salosh, how Salosh started off with actually talking about the different types of assessments, from MCQs to take-home exams, the different cognitive levels that academics will be assessing, and as well as some critical tips on how to answer those MCQ questions that you might find a challenge emerging. And then we went on to Vanessa, and Vanessa, Professor Sherman, spoke specifically about the thinking also about strategically those portfolio questions that you may have had, which we can see that raises some confusion, but she's unpacked that quite nicely on how you need to be cognizant of the kind of elements that you need to put in a portfolio and what will be assessed as part of this. And the latter part of her presentation on those key things to remember, your omissions, etc. So it's quite critical, colleagues, that you take note of these important elements that the colleagues have unpacked. And if you do have some time to re-watch this video very carefully and try to understand those key elements, because these are the exact things that academics will be looking at when they start engaging with the assessments and grading it. At this time, I see there's a lot of questions that have come up, some questions that are relating to the Invigilator app. We will discuss the Invigilator app tomorrow. So for Invigilator app questions, related questions, colleagues, students, please join us tomorrow and we will discuss those specific Invigilator app questions. Then also for those that missed out the recordings and need to catch up on the recordings, the easiest way for students to capture this and how to find this is you simply log on to YouTube, go to YouTube channel, search for Academic Development Open Virtual Hub. Once you find that channel, you will find a list of all the recordings from last week and the recordings for this coming week, which will be posted on that YouTube channel. And you simply look at the channel, see what you need to find, the day that you missed out, and you can watch that at your leisure. And I've looked at some of the stats. There's almost 4,000 or 5,000 students already that have looked at some of those videos. So it's quite a good resource for you to go back and look at. At this time, I'm going to invite the presenters to join us on the platform and share their cameras. And I'm also going to invite one additional colleague, Dr. Sheila, to also join us. Sheila is also facilitating the MOOC that you will then encounter as part of your sessions, and she will also facilitate the first session on the My Exams portal itself. So, colleagues, we have a good number of questions that emerge from the platform, and I'd like to pose some of these critical questions to us as we start engaging each other. And I'm going to start with Ingrid first, seeing that Ingrid, you were the first speaker. The question, so we're not going to say who it came from, but these are some of the questions that have very commented with other participants as well. So the first question, I'm confused regarding the exam dates. Will we be allowed to complete the exam over 3 days, or our time starts once we start the exam? Ingrid?
Thank you, Denzel. So I've seen a number of students ask this question, and it's really important to remember that the expectations, if you have a 3-day or a multiple day exam, is very different from the expectations if you have a 2 or 3 hour exam. So if you have a short 2 or 3 hour exam, it's one and done. You write and you upload it. If you have a multi-day exam, it implies that, so what it means in effect is you can download it the first day. You can also download it, later, although I would not advise that. But you can hand it in any time before the end of that 2 or 3 days or 10 days, depending on how long they made the exam. But it's what your lecturer will expect from you will be much more at a higher cognitive level, as Prof. Sherman has said, than a 2 or 3 hour exam. So it doesn't mean that students have to sit down and write for 3 days and never go to the bathroom and not eat, or it just means that once you get your exam paper, you read the questions. Often it's 2 or 3 essay questions that you have to answer, or you have to gather a number of things to show what you've learned throughout the semester. It depends on what your lecturer asks. But you would be expected to fully reference everything that you are using. So what I would advise for students is to download the question paper as soon as they get them. Read the question. If you have, apologies, if you have maybe a couple of hours to think about the different answers, and then write them down and then go back before you have to hand in your exam. So you don't have to sit and write for 3 days, but you do have to think about it for a number of days and go back to it again and again. It's not a one and done deal.
Thanks, Ingrid. I think that's quite important. While 3 days does seem long, the idea of balancing and managing those 3 days is very, very important, specifically trying to figure out what is being asked and how you actually respond to that. Sheila, if I may bring you in here, a lot of students are asking the question about mobile devices. Can exams be written on a phone?
It will depend, Dr. Chetty. Let me explain to students that since we have different types of exams, wherein we have multiple choice questions, and then we also have our take home with some essay type questions. So when you want to take your exam on the phone, it will also depend on the size of your phone. How big is your phone, wherein you can be able to type for 3 hours or for 2 hours. So my advice is that if you can, yes, you can be able to do that. But we know going back and forth on your phone, maybe if your screen is too small, typing on that Microsoft Word document on your phone, it might take up most of your time trying to adjust the page, seeing that everything is in. And it's actually, if you can, you are allowed to do that. But to make things easier for you, I think it's better to use your laptop or your desktop or just handwrite, and then you'll use your phone to scan at the end of the day.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sheila. I think that is quite important that you raise those on the types of exams and then looking at what can actually be done on a mobile device. And I think you also alluded to the fact that students can write and then take snapshots of it, convert it into a PDF and send it through. So I think that's also an important point for those students who cannot complete an assessment on an actual phone itself. So I think those are quite important points. Thank you, Sheila. Salosh and Vanessa. Vanessa, maybe I can ask this question to you first. I'm writing an essay question during a 3 to 4 hour exam. Will I be required to reference my answers? And if so, how do I know what type of referencing format to use?
Yes, very good question. I think it would depend on the lecturer. I have seen exam papers where lecturers have indicated that you don't need to reference because of the short time frame. In terms of referencing style, you would use the referencing style that you've been using in the module up until that point. But I do think with such a short period of time, lecturers generally don't expect you to reference. But just make sure in the instruction, because it will depend on your lecturer. Salosh?
Thanks, Vanessa. I think you covered that that question quite well. Yeah, it depends on the referencing style needed by the lecturer. It also depends on the assessment criteria. An essay might include a rubric. I know with the academics that we worked with so far, we advise them to attach a rubric for essay type of questions where possible. So if there is a rubric, it would be indicated in the rubric, the referencing, what style and what techniques to use.
Thanks, Vanessa and Solange. I think this other question is actually quite critical. It's quite straight to the point, but it might be a question on many students' mind and they don't actually know how to ask this question. So maybe we'll get Ingrid, and I know Ingrid might from academic perspective also respond to this question. What exactly is an open book exam? Okay, let me start with Ingrid first.
All right. So an open book exam for me indicates exactly what it says. You are allowed to have your textbook or prescribed work, whether that is electronically available to you or whether that is a physical hard copy of a book. You are allowed to have and consult that during your exams. Lots of if I'm thinking, for example, of some modules, they require you to, for example, know how to apply a certain formula, but they don't require you to know the formula off by heart because it might be too complex, or because it's not really about the fact that you can recite. Don't ask me about formulas, but recite A plus B equals Z. That's not the point. The point is the application. Or it might be a module that deals with laws, and it's not important that you can recite the law out of your head, but rather that you know how to apply it to what it means. So for me, that's an open book. There is a bit of a grey area in terms of notes. I would stay away from notes unless your lecturer have said you're definitely allowed to use notes. It's one of those areas where some lecturers might think it's okay, some might not, so check with your lecturers. The only thing that I want to caution students about, an open book exam doesn't mean that you will necessarily have the time to consult your open book. If you are writing a 1 hour or 2 hour multiple choice exam, you will not have the time to look up the answer for every question. If you have to answer 60 questions in 60 minutes, there's just actually simply not time to look those answers up. So you need to be prepared in any case with the open book exam. Back to you, Denzel.
Thanks. Vanessa, do you want to pick up on that?
Yes, I think that Dr. Govender, Solange, you really covered it really well in the presentation, and what Ingrid has also said. I think that you actually you need to prepare even better for an open book exam than you would for another type of exam, because as Solange has mentioned, because it's an open book exam, there are additional expectations in terms of application of knowledge. And as Ingrid has said, double check in terms of what is meant with an open book exam. Very, very, very importantly, if you have got electronic sources that you are using, please be mindful of plagiarism and copying and pasting from electronic sources. Please do join the academic integrity workshop that we will be having later in this week, as well as the recording. And I cannot overemphasize enough what Solange has said in terms of organizing your notes, in terms of making sure that you know exactly what's what and who's who, where it is in your book, if you need to quickly reference it, because you don't have a lot of time.
Thanks, Vanessa. Sheila, if I may bring you in at this time, MCQs sounds like an easy exam, and there seems to be a lot of students are being stressed out on one particular thing, time management, and they're a bit worried. How do I manage my time in a MCQ assessment? Any tips from your side on time management for MCQs?
Thank you, Dr. D. Students, firstly, my understanding is that before you engage in this MCQ, during the course of the year, you might have had your formative assessments that were on MCQs, and you already maybe know the styles of your lecturers, because every lecturer have got his or her own style of setting the exams. And as someone who is involved in training the lecturers, we advise lecturers that they need to balance their questions. You will find some questions that are at a low level of cognitive development, some questions that are at middle level, and those that are at high level. So if you are already aware and you prepare yourself, make sure that when they say it is 45 minutes, maybe the 45 minutes is 20 questions, then plan your time to say, how many minutes am I going to take on one question? Then you arrange your time like that. And also, I've seen one of the questions, Dr. D, when one of the students said, when I try to go back on MCQ, and then I can't go back. Or sometimes when you go back, you find a different new question altogether, because we advise lecturers to do randomized MCQs. So to avoid that you copy or maybe you share answers. So just know that when you try to go back, you might not find the question that you just saw. You will find a brand new question. So that's why planning is very much important. And also just check how your lecturer has been setting the multiple choice questions, because there will be, let me give example with mathematics. There will be a question that is multiple choice, but it will require you to work out the problem first and get the answer before you come back to the system and click the correct answer. So that's why time management is very much important. So plan your time while you are preparing for these questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sheila. I think you mentioned an important point which we need to stress a bit, is the randomized questions. And maybe we need to tell students that part of our strategy to ensure that there's no cheating to a certain extent is while you are doing an MCQ, you will get a set of randomized questions, and so it's very difficult for you to now pass those answers to those questions to your friend, because quite simply they would have a different set of questions. So avoid that, because you really would put yourself in a challenge. And what Dr. Sheila has also mentioned is that the time management is quite critical. Make sure that you answer those questions and proceed carefully, especially when if you think that you need to go back to a question, you might find a completely different question. So please make sure that you take very, very careful note of that. We now move on to another good question. I see there's some good questions coming out today, but questions that are practical challenges for a lot of our students. Plagiarism, and this is on the top of everybody's mind, because when they get zero, they want to know, why did I get zero in my exam paper? With just one word plagiarism, or just a statement, you plagiarized. So what exactly is plagiarism, and how does that differ from paraphrasing? I think that's a very good question. Let me see if I can. Okay, I can ask the academics here. So let me see, Vanessa, if you want to start, then maybe Salosh and Ingrid can add in there. And if Sheila wants to also come in, but Vanessa, plagiarism, paraphrasing.
Yes. I think that this is such a hot topic. So what is plagiarism in a nutshell? Well, it's actually stealing somebody else's ideas and pretending that it's your own. So it is copying and pasting directly from the textbook without referencing properly, without quoting. Paraphrasing is rephrasing what you have read in your own words. Paraphrasing is not copying and pasting directly from the textbook and then just using the synonym function in Word and just replacing every third word with a different word. That is not paraphrasing. I think we can all wax lyrically about plagiarism as well as paraphrasing, but I'll give Salosh and Ingrid a turn as well.
Students, I think Vanessa has captured it quite well. With regard to plagiarism, never copy and paste. That's a very, very common practice, given the fact that students are completing a take-home exams. Please write in your own words. And if you're using the direct words of certain scholars from the literature, make sure that you cite appropriately. And yeah, I've got nothing. I think Prof. Sherman has captured it quite well. And I think colleagues continue attending these MOOCs, because this will be covered in academic integrity as well. I think it's on Thursday. Okay, Ingrid, I don't know if you want to add.
No, I think you've all both covered it well.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you very much, colleagues. I think we've come to the end of the questions, but before I round up, there's one question, and then I will give each one of you an opportunity to also say a concluding remark. Ingrid, if you might quickly can you show the MCQ part of your presentation quickly to the students? I think there's some of them missed the first part of it, specifically the MCQ part. So if you can just touch that part, the MCQ part of it, and then I will invite the colleagues back to do their last rounding up words for the day.
There we go. All right, colleagues, students, so you would go on to My Exams. There has been a question about the college-specific sites. We have shared the link a number of times in the site. If you're struggling to go to myexams.unisa.ac.za, do find your college-specific link and go link it, access it from there. But once you've logged in, you find your site, there we go, and you would go to online assessments. So you would you would click under take an assessment. This will only be available from about 15 minutes before your exam is scheduled. So you would click on that. And then you would get to this page. This is the information page, and on this page, it's really important that you read through this, because it gives you everything that you need to be prepared. It tells you when it is due, but there's also a second date that is important, and that is it telling you how long you have for this exam. Your exam might be scheduled in a 3 or a 4 hour slot because there's so many of you, but but your actual exam would only be, let's say, an hour. And that hour begins the moment you click on begin assessment. Okay, and then it submits itself. And it will also tell you how many chances you have to complete the exam, depending on the lecturer, but normally that will be only once. And very important, it will also tell you here whether you will be able to go forwards and backwards in the exam. Some exams will be set up so that you only get one chance at the question, and once you've answered it, you cannot go back. So once you've read all of the information here, you must click on the honor pledge. And that means to say that you understand you are not allowed to get assistance from anyone or give anyone assistance. So you click that, and then you click on begin assessment. All right, then you will get the questions. So as I said, it will either be set up to give you the questions one by one, or it might be set up to give you some of the questions, you know, in little groupings of 3 or 4. Okay, at the top, you'll see it says time remaining. That is your counter for the actual time of the exam. Remember, I said your exam session might be longer, but your time for the actual time of the exam is set. And once that time has run out, the exam will auto-submit. So my exams keep track in the back of it. It keeps track of the time. We can see when a student started, when they've submitted. If they didn't submit, we can see that the system automatically submitted it on behalf of the students. If anything goes wrong while you are busy taking this exam, you can you know, in terms of your electricity cut, or you have some sort of a connectivity issue, you can log out and log back in again, and it will continue where you ended. Just beware though, if it takes you 10 minutes to log on, the counter doesn't stop counting, right? So you don't suddenly get an extra 10 minutes. You have that hour from when you started. So once you can see your exam, once you can see your questions, you pick the right answer by clicking on the radio button. Remember, some might ask you to fill in a question by typing in an answer. Some might be a short paragraph question that you have to answer. You know, just be aware of, it might not just be pick A, B, C, or D. Right, once you've picked the right answer, you can click on next. It will automatically save as you click next. Remember, for some exams, you won't be able to go back. Okay, you pick your answer there and you click on next. And then the final question, in this case, it's the final question. You click on next. You can then click on save because it's your final question, but the next button does save automatically. And then you click on submit for grading. All right, there we go. Here you can see it asks you again, submit for grading. You have to click it 2 times. If you don't click it 2 times, then it will not submit. So you must get the final submit for grading. And then what you get is you get a little receipt that you should keep. It will be automatically emailed to your My Life account, but you could also take a screenshot of this just for your own records. This is like the little slip that you used to get in exams to show that you were at the exam. So it's very important that you keep it in case there's any problems with your exam. And then simply you click on continue again and it will take you back to this page. And then you are basically done. Denzel, is that it?
Perfect.
All right.
Thanks, Ingrid. That's perfect. I think you've given our students an additional exposition to what they need to prepare. We've now come to the end of it, colleagues, the end of our week 2 webinar 1 for the week, the first session of week 2. But at this time, before I leave, let me ask my colleagues, you know, it's always good to get some additional motivation from our colleagues as well to spur you on as you drive to the examinations and prepare. So I'm going to ask the colleagues just to share slight rounding up words, motivation, whatever is left to them. Vanessa, from your side.
Yes. So there are a couple of things that I'd like to say, but I'll keep it short and sweet. Firstly, trust yourself. You know more than you think you do. I'd like to quote our previous president, Nelson Mandela, when he said, "It always seems impossible until it's done." So then my concluding remark would be, stay positive, work hard, make it happen, and good luck.
Thanks, Vanessa. I think from there we'll go to Sheila.
Thank you, Dr. D and the students. From me, what I would like to advise you with is that in these sessions of your exam, you really need your support, your friends' support, your family support. When I'm saying you need support, is something that I've seen previously. Some of you have got small babies wherein when you are busy with your exam, your baby will come and say, "Mommy, I need this, I need that." So you need support from your family members to look after your baby if indeed you have a baby. But we need the support from our friends and from our family, whatever kind of support it might be. We need that support. So I'm saying to you, seek support when you feel you need it and be supported. We are also here to support you. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheila. Thanks, Sheila. You've captured that quite well, and I think that's why I recall when on graduation days that when students graduate, they always thank their families, because at critical moments like this, your family is most important support system. Thanks, Sheila. Ingrid, from your side, and then we'll ask Salosh if it's around.
I think from my side, I would really advise students to keep calm. A lot of what I'm seeing in the questions is students starting to panic a little bit. I don't quite know. I'm not sure. Prepare yourself. We've shared lots and lots of resources where all of your questions are answered. If something goes wrong, as sometimes happen, keep calm and try and figure out how to fix what's gone wrong. And instead of panicking and then doing nothing because you are so stressed out now. So yes, keep calm, have some water while you're writing your exam. And you know what? You are doing this degree because you wanted to. This is important for you more than it is for us. We enjoyed our degrees when we were busy doing this, but this is now your time to shine. So enjoy it and keep calm.
Thanks, Ingrid. Salosh, last words from you, Salosh.
Students, I want to acknowledge that transitioning to online assessments, it's a new phenomenon, it's a new experience for all of us, including you. And it may be a very daunting experience, but I want to say to you, or rather we want to say to you collectively, that we are trying our level best to make it a pleasant experience for you. And as our other colleagues have mentioned, do not panic. Do not panic. We have given you all the support that we possibly can. We've provided you with plenty of resources, tutorials, videos, and whatever support materials. Please acquaint yourself with these. We know that, we don't want to add to your workload by saying to you, go and study these tutorials. But if you feel that you need to know something, just refer to those tutorials and be well prepared before your exams. And I just want to close by saying, going back to my quote, that success comes before work only in the dictionary. So please prepare yourself, and we wish you every success in your exams. Thank you.
Thanks, Salosh. I think that's an important part on work and success. So ladies and gentlemen, students, it's my privilege to say firstly, thank you to our facilitators for their excellent facilitation once again. They've always surprised us with the critical knowledge and the vast wisdom they have in the types of assessments and how you need to engage in this platform, specifically preparing yourselves. Thank you especially to all of you that have attended this afternoon session. Some of you have come from work and I know it's tiring, but you've taken the opportunity, or you've taken the time off to actually spend the time and engage with us on this platform. And that's a sacrifice which we don't take lightly, and we appreciate you. And that's why we wish you all the best in this journey. We also like to thank the facilitators in the background. We've got two producers that are with us today, David and Bongi, together with some colleagues from the SRU, the Student Retention Unit, and their leader, Lakau, for also spending some time with us and also engaging with us and engaging with the questions and moderating the questions and giving you the feedback that you need on the questions as well. So thank you, colleagues, for taking that time as well. And then we've also got the EDOV colleagues that you will also meet in the course of this week with other sessions that are coming up. Thank you also, colleagues, for all the time that you have spent with us this evening. And I can then just conclude by saying two important things. Tomorrow we will meet with one of the most critical things that you've all been raising questions on, the proctoring apps, Invigilator app and the Iris app. So please, tomorrow we meet at 5 p.m. Remember the links on the UNISA website. 5 p.m. is when we meet, and we will have those two demonstrations and discussions around the proctoring apps. So those are very critical sessions for you, specifically if you are using these apps as part of your examination. Then lastly, to recall, remember, if you missed any of our sessions you'd like to recall, simply log on to YouTube, search for Academic Development Open Virtual Hub. Academic Development Open Virtual Hub, ADO for short, and you will find us on the YouTube channel, and on that YouTube channel you will then be able to catch up with all the past recordings that we have, and we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you to have all these in a central space. So please log on to YouTube and also subscribe to the channel, because going forward we will have a lot of upcoming webinars and sessions that you might find critical information for. So subscribe and you will be continuously updated motivated with the sessions that we are having. So from my side, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much once again. All that is left is to wish you a restful evening. If you are preparing for examinations tomorrow, study hard, and we wish you the best. And along your journey for the next right up to the end of examination period. Remember, don't stress. Try not to stress too much. I know some of you have many modules that you are preparing for. Try to manage your time strategically, balance the time. Remember what one of our colleagues said, support systems are very important, and always take that into account as well. So thank you very much, colleagues, and from our side and the team, we wish you all good night and bless you all, and we will catch you up tomorrow at 5 p.m. Take care.